Yo, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the First Descendant, since they did a update on the game, and the newest character, Nell. Now, this is a beginner's guide for Nell, going over Nell's kit, going over the damage mod specifically, and then we can kind of go over the other mod, which is supposed to buff as well. So we'll go over the kit, look at it, see the mods, and see how it plays all together, and let's get into it.
All the cards on the battlefield are in my hands.
All right, so now let's looking at Nell's all together. Let's go over the passive, then we'll go over skill 1, 2, 3, and 4. So Nell is a non-attribute tech and fusion DPSer. Okay, now going over the passive, using Exceed inflicts Exceed scan on enemies in the front. Now, if you don't know what Exceed is when you scan, like the actual tab, if you're on mouse and keyboard, or whatever keybind you have to be able to look for resources in the area. So that is your Exceed. So some people might not know what the Exceed scan is, and you do need to have the scan up so that you're able to target certain people, and that target person will be inflicted with more damage or more debuffs. So that plays a factor into it. So having the scan is pretty important. While you are scanning, the reticle will guarantee your spots where you're looking at. You can have up to 8 targets altogether that you can have scanned. It lasts for 9 seconds, and yes, duration does play a factor into it. So if you want to add more duration, you can. But as you see at the very top, you can get weak point damage increased by 30%, which is going to be very good for your 4th ability, but which we'll talk about that later. All right. Now, it also has a 8-meter range, which you can get it 300 times, which is about 24 meters. So if you want to have a really big scan, you can if you want to, but keep in mind you still are limited to 8 targets. Now, you want to keep an eye on the targets that you are scanning, because those are the ones that will be afflicted. If you look somewhere else, you're going to have to rescan again. So focus on the ones you are focusing on, get rid of them, do the more damage, because you're going to be able to do more damage with that scan target. So keep that in mind, that you only have 8 targets you can actually do. So now looking at the first ability, this one's called Breach Projection. You fire off a barrage of shards, and if enemy is inflicted with a Exceed scan, will deal additional effect. Now, you can have 2 if you want to. You can work on cooldown so you're able to span this out as fast as possible. You do 801% damage, which is super solid. On top of that, the projectiles that comes out, there's 3 of them that come out, even though there's 2 stacks of 3s. So keep that in mind. Yes, you could increase the range of the projectile speed, how fast they come out, but I personally like the speed that is currently at. You can adjust it if you want, but I found that sometimes when my scan goes away, while I press my ability to my first ability to shoot the shards out to them, I can scan, and when I scan, then I'm able to get that target still to do more damage. So that delay that you have with the first ability and non-scanning, being able to press it allows me to hit that just in time. So if you were to adjust the projection speed, that might change a little bit, so just keep that in mind. I personally like it like that. Now, one thing that's very important is while you are scanned and you got targets, when you actually hit a target while they're scanned with the first ability, it would actually make your 4th ability faster, the Gaze of Abyss. We're going to talk about it, but the first ability and 4th ability work kind of together very well. So on this one, when you're scanned, you're going to make it faster for you to use your 4th ability. Now, it also does explosion damage, so it's really good. If you can get the range on this to be a lot better, 8 meters, you're able to kind of hit more targets and do more damage off of the explosion as well. So just keep that in mind when it comes to using the Breach Projection, and it is a tech ability. All right, moving on to the second ability, Fusion. All right, this one is called Breach Link. Creates a breach link at a designated location. So you got an AoE on the field. Now with this AoE is 6 meters currently, and you can have it 300%. So that's 18 meters to have this giant AoE. Now, if you have your cooldown really fast and you use your 3rd ability, you can actually technically have 2 out on the field. So that also plays a factor into just covering more area altogether. Now, what does this do? Now, it does give them a debuff. It weakens their defense. It slows them. Whatever enemies in the circle is slowed down by 10%. They also take more weak point damage as well. So that all plays a factor that they're getting debuff when it comes to it. Now, you could. This is a DOT, so it's a constant DOT, 154% damage. But what you could do, let me see if I can scroll down here. You can actually return it, and when you return your ability, you press your second ability again, you actually do an explosion damage. And you can only do this damage when you activate your second ability to end it a little bit early. You do explosion damage, and it just does a lot more damage altogether. And it makes it easier for you to activate your second ability again. Now, you could do this and use your third ability to help you out. Your third ability is going to coincide with the second ability, so they kind of work together, and they're both going to be fusion. So as you see here, they're both fusion. But just to show you real quick that you can have two out on the field, we're going to put one, and you're going to see that I'm able to let's put this out there. Yep. Now, with a faster cooldown, I'll just show you guys real quick because it makes it so much easier. We're going to go cooldown. All right. Whoa. Nimble fingers. And where's the other one? MP conversion. Oop. All right. So you're going to see with a faster cooldown, you're going to be able to have two out on the field. So we're going to activate this. Okay. Pop this. Now, as you see, I still have a cooldown. They're still taking damage. They're still debuffed technically. And I'm going to be able to activate another one here. And now we can able to have two. So with more duration and more cooldown, you're going to be able to constantly have up to all the time. Now, the third ability, if we were to look at the third ability real quick. All right, going to third ability. Third ability is called Graviton Reversal. Now, what this does is pretty much does your explosion that you would have done on your two, but now on your third ability. You do more damage, and what is really good is it actually sucks everyone into one localized spot. So the damage is a lot bigger here, is 2100, and the range is 18 meters, as well as the range of your Graviton AoE here. Your breach link. So this is really good. This is what causes you to do that explosion damage, and then you're good to go to activate your second ability. Now keep in mind, when using the second ability, if I activate my ability here and then activate my ability to explode, boop, they took damage there, and I was to, let's see if I can get this in time, or was to press this, and when I press the third ability now, only the newest one is going to explode, not the one that's already out already. So once you detonated one, that's it. You're done. So when you activate your third ability, you're going to detonate the latest one you did. So just keep that in mind. Okay. And now let's look at the fourth ability. All right. So those two are tech, and the first and the fourth ability are fusion. Now, when it comes to the fusion, fourth ability, the tech ability, sorry. The tech fourth ability, Gaze of the Abyss. Now, remember I told you how the first ability and fourth ability work together? That first ability, what it does is allows you to have a faster cooldown of this ability. So Gaze of the Abyss, all firearm attacks that Nell does target weak points, okay? So just to know, it automatically targets it for you, okay? On top of that, it increases the damage of weak point damage for you and your nearby allies. Now, it doesn't actually give you a range, so I'm assuming based off of this, this also is almost like Eugen's AoE. It just does damage, does healing for his heals. And I think in this case, I think everyone just gets more damage. So you can play that in factor. I haven't tested that specifically. I've been using the Transcendant Mod that I personally like a little bit better, and we're going to be talking about that kit. But this is specifically based on weapon damage. So if your weapons are super cracked out, what you can do is focus more on cooldown and duration to be able to use your weapons to do more damage specifically, because again, you really just need the first ability and the fourth ability to kind of coincide with each other. So on top of this, like I said, the weak point damage is 35% damage. Again, you also have some weak point damage for your passive, so you have a lot of weak point damage that you are currently doing. Now, what's interesting about the fourth ability is you see kind of here, right above it, is when you activate your fourth ability, if you press your first ability and hit a target with that breach and it's scanned, it would actually increase the duration of that fourth ability. So as we talked about before, the first ability helps you have a faster cooldown on the fourth ability. And while the fourth ability is up, if you use your first ability, will help keep that duration going. So they kind of coincide with each other. So you kind of want to understand how to balance between the first ability and fourth ability and using your weapon. But I kind of feel like the second and third ability kind of takes it away from her kit a little bit. It's a little bit different, but I do find that she's kind of overall pretty decent. You have some solid damage you can do with your weapons, and then you have some good AoE grouping if you have it on range. So that's just a way to play with her altogether. So when it comes to this, I mean, you're going to be more focusing on cooldown. You can be focused on duration, keeping that duration up really high. And again, focusing more specifically on your weapons than your actual skills. Now, let me go ahead and show you what the Shatterheart is about. This mod here is pretty good. This is the mod I've been using lately and I find really, really fun when playing with Nell. What this pretty much does is gives you a unique bar, and it's called suspicion. That's what it's called. So what ends up happening is your fourth ability no longer buffs weapon. It actually does skill damage. So as you see here, my fourth ability actually does projectiles. Now these projectiles go based off of how much suspicion bar you have accumulated. So for instance, the passive says all the way on top, it says max acquired suspicion is 9. Okay, so there's 9 of these that you can have, and that means there's 9 projectiles and 9 special bars you can do. Now, as it's very, very, very top, you see skill critical hit rate increased by 30%. Yes, this is going to be very important for you to get critical hit rate when it comes to Nell. So my first build, and I'm going to show you guys, and really right now my only build that I've been having fun with is a critical hit rate and damage on Nell. So you're going to want to make sure you are damn near max critical hit rate. Now, there are a couple things we're going to talk about, things to keep in mind when having that. But what you're going to be focusing on specifically is making sure you build up your suspicion. Now, what's really interesting about the passive that changes is when you're focusing on a Colossus, as you see in the middle, it talks about enemies under the reticle are guaranteed to be inflicted with a sieve scan. If the reticle is on a weak point of a Colossus, a sieve scan is applied to that weak point. We're going to show you how important it is. You kind of have to be close to be able to see the weak point, which again, to get the sieve scan to actually pop up as a target, you're going to see that lightning bolt. Now I'm going to show you guys real quick what that looks like. So the actual scan, boom, that is the lightning bolt you need. Okay. So when doing the suspicion, you need to see that lightning bolt. When you're attacking targets, you need to see that lightning bolt, and you really should be focusing on any target that has that suspicion on, because that is what you're going to be building up your bar. Now, what gives you suspicion? Only one skill, and that is this skill right here, the first skill, Breach Spike. Now, you can only get suspicion on that first ability when you have your sieve scan up. So just to show you guys real quick, if I was to press my first ability, nothing pops up. But if I hit scan, I got 1 bar. Now there are 3 shots and there's an explosion damage. So all that has a chance for you to get a critical hit rate. And when you get critical hit rate, what ends up happening, as we look at the bouncing around a little bit, bear with me. Oh, this is the first ability. And you see right there, suspicion generate rate at 50%. Okay. So what's important is if you have a 50% chance to get a suspicion bar and you have only 30% critical hit rate, you're not going to be able to get consistently that suspicious bar to go up. So you kind of want to make sure you are maxed on your critical hit rate so you're able to get that suspicion bar filled up as fast as possible. Okay, so as we talked about, you want to make sure you have this up. Again, that only hit 1, so it's not that consistent. as you start to build on your critical hit, you're going to see how more consistent it is to land it. Now, let me show you the build specifically that I'm using with this, okay? Now, here's my build right here. This is a general build that I'm using overall. Pretty solid. I have skill critical hit rate, the insight. I'm also using measures. Both these two with the reactor that I'm using. This reactor is fusion. I wish it was tech, but it's fusion. But it's, as you see, critical hit rate and damage here specifically. Boop. So you're going to want to make sure you get a reactor that helps you that way. Now, the weapons is up to you. I personally just still like to use the Secret Garden. It boosts the skill damage. My critical hit rate is already high. It's 100%. So as you see here, I'm at 100%. That's what you want to see. When you're 100%, you have almost 50% definitely guaranteed to make sure you hit. Now, with so many explosion damage you're going to do, you're going to make sure you hit more than one for sure. So as you see here, I got 3. So it makes it a lot more easier for you to get that suspicion bar up, okay? Very, very important that you have to make sure that target is the one you're hitting. Now, if you scan here and you look over there and you start doing damage to these enemies over here, you won't get your suspicion bar up. You want to make sure you're focusing on the target that you have scanned, okay? Very, very important. Now, the other abilities don't really change as much. They don't give you any suspicion. They change either the value of the damage that they do or the cooldown. It's not that much of a difference on the other abilities. It is very helpful when you're doing dungeons and stuff like that to use the second and third ability to help you out. Because if you see here, we're going to put more targets. All right, spawn this. All right, we got a bunch of targets. Now, remember we talked about based off my suspicion bar, as many projections I will be able to shoot. So we have 5. Now watch this. There's 5. Boom. Now the 4th ability, you actually have to look at your reticle what you're going to hit. It doesn't lock on. So very important that if you're looking at something, that you lock on. Because if you are not locked on, it's just going to overshoot or shoot the ground. So it's very important wherever your reticle is kind of where you have to aim it. Okay. Now let me show you guys how quick it is if you are doing this. So I have a lot of range on mine. Let me just kind of go over the mods real quick because I kind of went over it. I have a bunch of criticals, critical hit rate with the damage. I also got focus on non-attribute, both of these, because one, they give me cooldown, but because I'm using all my abilities on like dungeons and defense missions and stuff like that, and even, out in the open world, with this being said, I prefer to do the non-attribute buffs because then they will buff both my attack and fusion powers. But if you like one or the other, if you definitely spam the one, I could totally understand an argument for that. But in this case, I just happen to put the skill power for non-attribute, and I also put this, and this gives me 10% critical hit damage. I believe I'm around 90-something% without this, so it's not necessarily needed, especially if you use like what's that, Blue Beetle if you wanted to, because Blue Beetle helps you with your critical hit rate as well. So that plays a factor into it. I'm using critical damage, concentration for the critical damage. It just helps you do a lot more damage. Obviously your cooldowns. I'm doing battle stamina for the duration. That duration does seem to help. Can you take this out for something else? If you have good HP or good defense, up to you. When I put this defense thing on, it helps me do a lot more damage. It's like a good 100k on the DOT that you do. So I kind of keep that because the damage is pretty solid for that DOT that you do. And that's pretty much it when it comes to that. But now let me show you real quick why you still want to pepper in your fusion, your 1 and 2. So as you see here, no fusion damage. I'm doing 340,000 damage. I'm going to put them together. They are going to do damage. That was 4 million. I'm going to scan. And then look at that. A full bar of suspicion just from hitting those multiple targets. Okay? Now, we were doing about 3 on one single target. So if you have at least maybe 3 or 4 of these, with one hit of this, you can get your suspicion bar all the way up. And as you see, I'm going to hit scan. Boop. And then I'm activating my 4th ability. You have 9 projectiles. And that's 5.5 million on 9 projectiles. That's a crazy absorbent amount. That's 45 million right off the fourth ability. And you do want to make sure you're scanning. The more times you're scanned, the more damage you're going to do. Because, if we haven't talked about it already, when you scan, you do 100% damage. Where's it at? There it is. Scan targets right there. 100% damage additional. So you want to make sure that when you activate your fourth ability that you scan. Okay? That's why I don't mess with the projectile speeds. I kind of leave them alone. But overall, you can get your suspicion pretty damn quickly, as you saw here. Now, let me show you what the Colossus looks like real quick, because the Colossus is important when you need to be really close to see those hit scans. So let's go ahead and put Devour up real quick. About this. All right. We got Devour up. All right. You see? There's nothing that pops up. Nothing that's popping up. So you want to be close and you want to hit scan. Now, only this one is available. The other ones are not available. So when I hit this, I'm doing more damage specifically to that spot. And as you saw, I did 5 to that. Now I'm maxed. Now I can go ahead and do this. I finished them. Okay, so obviously Devour is super easy to do, but I just wanted to show you guys that you have to be near that hit point and looking at that area to target it. So now let me just show you real quick on another Colossus. Okay, boop. Again, if I'm all the way out here, that's when I have to hit. Okay, boom. I'm already at maxed. Okay. Boom. It does do a lot of damage. So that is just the build I have currently right now I've been working with. Now, things to keep in mind that you can do, again, depending on what you use. If you get a tech one like this with double gold, that's probably going to do a lot more damage. Tech is the weapon, the power you're going to use to do the most damage, both for your first ability and your fourth ability. So if you buff that, plus you have gold on both of these, you're going to do a lot more damage than I am doing. But I prefer the Secret Garden for the skill boost damage on top of the stacks. You can do 15% more damage. But if you're having some issues, you can always use Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle does fusion. And you activate your second ability or your third ability. You're going to be able to do have some critical hit rate here as well. So it's up to you when it comes to it. And I'm just using the Slayer set. That just seems to be the best set for me right now. But I've been having fun playing with Nell. I'm curious to see what your thoughts, everyone else's thoughts are on Nell. I think Nell is a solid character. It's not Freyna. It's not Inez. But overall, I think she's pretty solid. You can have a giant AoE, 24 meters, that can grab up a lot of targets, suck them all in, and then destroy them all. I think it's pretty solid. But having a lot of fun using this specific build. Now, when it comes to her other mod, let's go here. Her other mod is a ally buffing. So instead of having your second and third ability that works around with that big giant AoE, you actually grant your allies some buffs. Now, I don't know what the buffs are, so hopefully someone in the comments can make a note of what the buffs are specifically, but I don't have it currently. I'm still working on the story, but that's pretty much it. What do you guys think about Nell? Hopefully this makes it easier to understand Nell's abilities and how the first ability works with the fourth ability with a basic Nell, and then when you're using the Shatterheart, how they all kind of play together, but it's really the first ability and again the fourth ability that work together as well. So that plays a factor into it, and it looks like they're doing that with her mods. Even her other mod, her second ability works with her third ability, and they're changing those things around. So just keep that in mind when playing with Nell. There's a few things that we were able to play test and test out and check it out. And I think this is pretty much a good condensed version. Now, we tried making this video a few times and our audio kept messing up, so we ended up having to scrap the audio and start it all over again. So I do apologize for rushing it and trying to keep it in one take, but that's pretty much it, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.